Warp Wood was an oddly weak and powerful spell at the same time. Because, like, if there's no wood around, it's useless, right? You're not going to be doing anything with it. Like underground, probably not going to be very useful. You know, if your enemies aren't using weapons with wooden halves or projectiles, not very useful.
The second you pull out a bow or a crossbow, you're like, all right, I got this. You know, being able to, you know, put that -4 on all attack rolls, you know, that's...
Or make your ranged weapon useless.
Right.
And also if you're a high enough caster, because then a lot of your spell effects were affected by how high a level you were. You know, you could affect multiple targets at once and be like, that bow, that bow, that bow.
Right.
Or just like a boat, right? You're like, yeah, we're going to sink that.
I'm Nerdarchy Ted.
And I'm Nerdarchy Dave.
Welcome to
Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds.
All right, looks like we're kind of jumping into some old school stuff and trying to recreate a spell.
Yeah, so we're going to do some old school spells, revisit it. We're going to look at one of the spells that didn't make it into 5e. But, you know, we're going to take a look at it and discuss kind of how it was used, how it was written before in previous editions, and how we might do it in 5th edition.
So the spell we're looking at is Warp Wood. I've gone ahead and pulled out some of my old books here so we can read both the 2nd and the 3rd and see how we go from there.
Let's start with 3rd edition and we can work our way back.
All right, so this is a 2nd level Druid spell. I'm not going to get into, you know, all the particulars, but you cause a wood to bend and warp, permanently destroying its straightness, form, and strength. A warp door springs open or becomes stuck, requiring a strength check to open at your option. A boat or ship springs a leak. Warped ranged weapons are useless. A warped melee weapon causes a -4 penalty on attack rolls. You may warp one small or smaller object, such as a wagon wheel or a human's crossbow, or its equivalent per caster level. A medium object counts as 2 small objects, a large object as 4, a huge object as 8, a gargantuan object as 16, and a colossal object as 32. Alternatively, you can unwarp wood with this spell, straightening out wood that has been warped by the spell or by other means. You can combine multiple consecutive warp wood spells to warp or unwarp an object that is too large for you to warp with a single spell. For instance, an 8th level druid could cast 2 warp wood spells to warp a gargantuan object, or 4 warp wood spells to warp a colossal object. Until the object is completely warped, it suffers no ill effects.
In previous edition, a lot of times spells had reversible effects, where you could cast it one way or the other. This particular spell has an interesting component where you can keep casting the spell over and over again until you're out of the spell, pretty much. Because back then you'd have to pair that. Not only would you have to prepare that specific spell, you'd have to prepare that specific spell a number of times per day.
Yes.
If you wanted to cast it more than once, like not like 5e, where as long as you had it prepared and you had the slots, you could just pour all your slots into that spell. But back then, you had to memorize Warp Wood once, twice, thrice, depending on how many times you wanted to do it. Now, it is kind of cool in the sense that either one caster or multiple casters could pour their energy into the same spell and keep doing that until it creates the effect, because, you know, maybe one casting of it's not powerful enough and the object is too big. So thematically, I like that idea. You know, a group of druids all casting Warp Wood at the same time to affect a massive structure or something.
It's full of flavor, you know, to be able to bend and twist things. And you could, especially with the way 5e is working nowadays, you could use it almost in a way to, possibly shape something in an artistic manner beyond making it something that is just, I'm trying to make this thing useless.
I don't think so, because I believe in previous editions there was a shape wood spell.
No, I'm saying, like, with the looking at it through a 5th edition lens, you could kind of look at it from that way.
Maybe. I'm not so sure, but
Okay.
I mean, yeah, that's one interpretation, I'm sure. Warp Wood was an oddly weak and powerful spell at the same time, because, like, if there's no wood around, it's useless, right? You're not going to be doing anything with it. Like underground, probably not going to be very useful. You know, if your enemies aren't using weapons with wooden halves or projectiles, not very useful.
The second you pull out a bow or a crossbow, you're like, all right, I got this. being able to, put that -4 on all attack rolls, that's
or make your ranged weapon useless.
Right.
And also if you're a high enough caster, because then a lot of your spell effects were affected by how high a level you were. You could affect multiple targets at once and be like that bow, that bow, that bow.
Right.
Or just like a boat, right? You're like, yeah, we're gonna sink that.
So all in all, pretty darn cool.
So what do we got for second edition?
So we pull out, the even further back in my advanced second edition book. It is a second level priest spell, like its later counterpart. It is reversible. When the spell is cast, the priest causes a volume of wood to bend and warp, permanently destroying its straightness, form, and strength. The range of warp wood spell is 10 yards for each level of experience of the caster. It affects approximately 15-inch shaft of wood of up to 1-inch diameter per level of the caster. Thus, a first level caster might be able to warp wood a hand axe handle or 4 crossbow bolts. At 5th level, he can warp the shaft of a typical spear. Note that the boards or planks can also be affected, causing a door to be sprung or a boat or ship to spring a leak. Warped missile weapons are useless. Warped melee weapons suffer a -4 penalty to attack rolls, which we saw in 3rd. Enchanted wood is affected only if the spellcaster is of a higher level than the caster of the prior enchantment. The spellcaster has a 20% cumulative chance of success per level of difference, 20% if 1 level higher, 40 if 2 level higher, etc. Thus, a door magically held or wizard locked by a 5th level wizard is 40% likely to be affected by a warp wood spell cast by a 7th level priest. Wooden magical items are considered enchanted at 12th level or better. Extremely powerful items such as artifacts are unaffected by this spell. The reverse spell, Straighten Wood, straightens bent or crooked wood, or reverses the effect of a warp wood spell subject to the same restrictions. So, that's quite a bit, going on there. But it's, for the most part, other than, like, the number of items affected or the size of the item, it's right on par with the same kind of thing. 3rd edition definitely allows you to affect larger and larger objects as your caster level increases.
3rd edition had that going on, but 2nd edition had the extra benefit of affecting magically affected or enchanted wood. So if you wanted to affect enchanted wood in 3rd edition, I don't think you could. But in 2nd edition, you could if you were a more powerful caster. You can make their wood bend.
Yeah, and unless you were 5 levels higher, there was essentially a mischance. You'd cast the spell and nothing could happen if you rolled poorly enough.
All right, so we see the uses for it in 2nd and 3rd edition. We kind of have that all laid out. So how do we use it in 5e? How do we turn it into a 5e spell? I mean, we could probably keep it a 2nd level spell just like it was originally. And then there are certain things, right? Like the fact that, the -4, well, in 5e, that would probably just be disadvantage.
Correct, yeah. And that's the way I would look at it. But I would feel, and you can voice your own opinion, to fit with the theme of what 5th edition tends to do, I would say like this spell would probably be concentration, and if you concentrated for the full minute, it would become permanent. If you didn't concentrate for the full minute, it would spring back to whatever it was supposed to be. That's the way I feel it should probably go.
Well, I would look at a spell like Shape Stone and see, like, I think you can just do it. And also, I think it's very situational as far as spells go, so I probably would not make it a concentration spell. The thing that I would do is I'd have it, you'd be able to upcast it to affect more and more, larger and larger volumes of wood. For every level, caster level, or every spell slot level above 2nd, it's going to affect a greater area.
Right.
I might kind of look at things like Conjure Animal or Animate Object to kind of get an idea for how much area they should be affecting. It does get a little tricky, right? Because like Animate Object's like a 5th level spell. It's powerful magic, and you can affect kind of a lot of things.
Right.
Conjure Animals is more going to be based off of, CR, right? So it's like, what can I extrapolate from those things in order to, figure out how much volume, right, that you're going to be able to affect. Maybe look at Fabricate, but again, these are all really high level spells.
So looking at a 2nd level spell, I would say like 1 quiver worth of ammunition, or one item. You know, whether it be, you know, a bow, the shaft of a you know, pole arm or spear, as long as it's of course made of wood. You know, I don't know whether I would feel like a crossbow falls into the same range because it is, you know, a stockier presentation, but the original spell did, so I don't know how you know.
I think it would be okay because while it is thicker, right, it's not nearly as long as a spear haft, right? So if you were to take the spear haft and cut it down to the length of a crossbow,
Right, that's true.
it's going to be 2 or 3 times, you know, depending on how long the spear is. So still not quite as thick, but we're getting closer.
Sure. So I would say, like, you know, as a second level spell, one item or one quiver of ammunition, and should you upcast, you know, I would say at third level, for every level above 2, you could add 2 more items. Unless you're really, you know, at a pinch. I don't think you're going to be using a 9th level spell with this.
I would say a doubling. I'd be cool with a doubling.
A doubling effect. So
Per
1, 2,
per
4.
so you know, once you get up there, it affects a lot of things. But like if say you do decide to cast as a 9th level spell, like that whole you know, that whole block of archers,
Right.
Sure, you can warp all their arrows.
It's 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128 with a 9th level spell, you know, items. 128 archers who all of a sudden their bows just go, "Bleh!" You know, as long as they're within the range of the spell.
Yeah.
That's pretty darn impressive.
It is, but you know, you're not altering the fabric of reality.
Right.
So.
I think a meteor swarm will take out 128 archers.
Over and over again. Yeah, so that's why I think the doubling is probably okay.
Sure.
And then like, you know, when you get to 5th level, it's a decent amount, but it's also a decent amount spell. Like, and then you could take that doubling and look at those numbers at 5th level, and then you could directly look at animate object and see how many objects you can animate at what sizes.
I believe animate object is 10 at 5th level. So.
It depends. 10 tiny. It just depends on the size.
Sure. You know, versus like the 8 things that as a 5th level spell that you'd have with the doubling. You know, it gets exorbitantly higher when you start getting, you know, factoring in doubles.
But also, you know, once you get past those like 5th level spell slots, 6 and above, you're like you get like one of those, right? So I don't like if that's what you want. If that's what your druid wants to spend their spell slot on, I'm like, go for it at that point.
So would you put this in a druid and a nature domain?
So it's definitely druid, but I guess the problem is the way 5e works is the domains give you a very limited number of spells. Like you're only getting 2 per level.
Right.
So you'd have to swap out what their normal 2nd level spell would be.
Right. Well, anytime you start getting into custom spells, like that's the trade-off. Like you might have to make that trade.
Well, yeah, and that's exactly it. So for the most part, I would make it a druid spell, maybe a bard spell. Just because I just feel like, I don't know, I just envision the bard singing to the void and warping it.
I can totally get behind that.
I mean, we could, but I don't want to put ourselves on the hook for it.
So there's our thoughts on what warp wood might look like if we put it into 5th edition. If you like this video, others like it, as well as all the fantastic content you can find over at nerdarchy.com. Why not come check us out on Patreon and support us over there?
Articles like old school D&D spells, Stick to Snakes Reborn for 5e D&D, cast down thy staff.
Another great way to support Nerdarchy is to check out Nerdarchy the store and some of our amazing products like Beardomancy. Beardomancy is a new 5th edition wizard arcane tradition for the follically empowered. These wizards have mastered the ancient tradition of Beardomancy. No matter your gender, you can master the school of Beardomancy with enough practice and dedication. Bring your beard to bear against foes and protect your allies with beardomantic energy from the beard dimension. But there are dangerous entities there too, not to be tangled with lightly. Enclosed within is a new arcane tradition, Beardomancy, 2 new feats, the new monster, the Hirsute Horror, 11 new Beardomancy spells including Power Word Beard, 13 new Beardomancy themed items, 4 new Beardomantic magic items.
So let us know what you think about Warp Wood. Is it a spell that you're fond and familiar with from previous editions? And maybe this is the first time you've ever heard of it. Is it something you would like your druid to have access to? Let us know down in the comments below what you think, and maybe you have some good Warp Wood stories to share.
While you're down there, don't forget to do all those fun things like, share, subscribe. Go ahead and click on that notification bell. You know the drill.
Quick reminder, we drop new videos here several times a week, so come on back. But you can't wait till then. No worries, we got you covered. Check out old D&D Spells Reborn 5e Death Knell.
So until next time,
Stay nerdy.